Hello, and welcome back to the garden here at Okarga Farms, where we're out doing some maintenance today, just trying to get ready for fall, bringing in some of those fall accents and actually beginning to weed and cut things back and get those ready for cooler weather. I've been adding a few little bits of color because the garden had become a little brown and stale. It's been a really hot summer, as I've mentioned before, and I'm just ready to bring in some fun color with pumpkins and pansies and all kinds of beautiful kale. So today I'm just going to be doing some really home maintenance and also looking at things that I need to be doing over the next few weeks. I'm out trimming out some of the dead branches. I've let a lot of things go to seed, especially things like hollyhock. I mean, every year my hollyhocks come back more and more because of the seed that I'm just allowing to fall. What I typically do is just leave those stalks on the hollyhocks and let them dry. But because they were starting to get a little brittle and falling over, those that haven't quite produced the seed just yet, I just cut them and threw them on the ground. I'm just going to let them open up naturally. And hopefully, again, we'll have another successful year with hollyhock. But I'm also just taking inventory about things that have done well, things that haven't done well. One thing that hasn't fared very well is our birdhouse. Of course, it probably wasn't made out of all the proper outdoor materials, and we lost the roof over the summer season. So I'm going to be taking that off and putting in a new birdhouse. I love having that here as a focal point and having the clematis to grow up, giving a little bit of height in the center of the garden. So I'm going to be taking that off and putting in another birdhouse. But look over here at this beautiful, absolutely beautiful Sweet Mademoiselle rose from the Bloomables collection. Again, if you've watched any of my videos, I have talked about Bloomables and the Sweet Mademoiselle rose many, many times. I love the color. I love kind of an orangey apricot color. It has this type of, like an English type of bloom, multi-petaled, and it just blooms off and on all season long, starting early in the spring. And again, one of the favorite things about this rose that I absolutely love is the foliage, because I don't have to spray at all. I have never sprayed this rose. The green foliage is just absolutely bug-free. If you look in there really close, you can see. And again, this rose probably has only been trimmed once this season. And just look how it continues to just add more and more blooms. You'll even see more buds coming up through there. So I have probably never loved a rose as much as I love this Sweet Mademoiselle. It's in the Bloomables collection, and it's one certainly I recommend for your garden. But then as far as getting in the fall spirit, I'm just going to be adding a lot of pumpkins around. I actually like to add them in the garden, not just right up at the house on the porch, but I actually like to bring them out and add them into my landscape. I think it really helps bring out a lot of color, a lot of unique varieties out here. You can kind of spread them all out and really appreciate them. And by having these pumpkins out actually in the garden beds, it is a great welcome as you're driving in. It lets everyone know that the fall is already beginning here in the garden area, and it also is a great accent to so many of these fall, actually colored plants. So what I'm going to do today is just go around, do some maintenance. I'll probably stop along the way, talk about some of my successes and failures, and we'll see if we can get things pumped up and ready for fall, as I'm sure the temperatures will begin to decline here before long. So if you'll just come along with me, again, we're going to dig in, do some cleaning as we go, and probably even place some more pumpkins. So here we go. As you can tell, the pollinators are happy to see this plant as well today. This is one of my favorite tricks to do every year in the garden. It's throwing out zinnia seed. I had a little patch of garden phlox that just kind of petered out really early on. I don't really know what happened. I know the upper part of this berm doesn't always get hit with the sprinkler, so it could have gotten a little dry on some of those hot days. But what I typically do, if I have a great patch in the middle of the summer that just isn't faring very well, I'll just get some zinnia seeds, throw those in, and let those kind of take over and fill out. It's really hard to sometimes bring in those bedding plants right in the middle of the heat of the summer, but the zinnias absolutely love the heat. It helps them germinate really well. And then by the time you get to the fall, just look at all this beautiful color that I can cut and take inside the house. So something that I would recommend, always keeping some zinnia seeds on hand whenever you have an area that you really don't know what to do, and it's just a huge space in the middle of the garden. Try just throwing out some seeds and see how they do. And as you can see, I think these are doing a great job of keeping that color here in the garden. And then down front, again, those peach drift roses, they're starting to flush back out and get ready for fall. I'm going to do a little trimming on those, probably a little fertilizing, because we're probably 6 weeks or so from a good frost. So they'll have still some chance to flush back out to add a little bit more color. So I'll be doing that later on as well. All right, we're going to head on over probably to the front of the sidewalk, and I've got some mums and pumpkins that I want to add to that area. So let's go. So we had to add some fall color here to the entrance of the sidewalk, and really it's just a simple installation. Simple single colored mums, this beautiful kind of an orangey bronze color. I did a trio of them on each side, and then to cover their plastic pots up, because we just left them in the nursery pots, I just did piles of pumpkins and gourds around the front, laying them on top of the Purple Heart. You know, the Purple Heart, of course, it's going to die when the freeze comes anyway, but I'll just keep it extra watered. It does have a little bit of pressure from the pumpkins on top, but most of the time it survives actually quite well. And I've never really brought mums out to this area. I've done pumpkins before, but I think it just turned out great. And would you just look at this Proven Winners Rockin' Play in the Blues salvia today. Again, I talk about this probably every video that we have, but just look at the pollinators today. Absolutely beautiful. Here we are into the first week of October, and they are just swarming all over. I mean, I'm just so happy with how this has turned out. I've had a couple of people ask me about how many plants of the Rockin' Play in the Blues. I've estimated that I actually planted about 8 to 10 in this area, but just look how they have filled out. I mean, just a glorious cacophony of color. By adding the mums and pumpkins to the front, it turns it into a fallscape, so to speak. Certainly it welcomes you to come on in and see what lies ahead. We're going to walk up by the house. I haven't quite started that install, but I'm going to show you what I do to get started when I'm going to do a fallscape up at the house. So if you look around, you can tell I spent last week actually taking out all the annuals in this area. They were looking a little weathered, and I'm ready to start putting in a lot of my fall blooming annuals that I want to have. Pansies, mums, kales, peppers, grasses, all will be coming in this area over the next week. And I actually want to place a few things and just start thinking about exactly what I want to do, because this is really going to be a pretty big display when we finish. I started with my corn stalks. I could not decide this year what I wanted to do in the planters. I thought once about taking the trellises out, stacking the corn stalks straight up in the middle, and then filling the planters with kales and mums, pumpkins, things like that. I actually think I'm going to run them up the frame of the trellis. I'm actually going to make them look like they're coming out of the planter themselves. I don't like these bare stems right here on the bottom. So again, it's just part of the process. I like to start getting my supplies together. This is probably going to be the biggest display for the fall, so it's going to take a little bit of time, and one that we'll be working on over the next week. So if you come back, probably 2 or 3 videos from now, we'll have the big unveil, and then it'll give you a chance to tell me what you think of how it turned out. But again, a great before shot. Now that I just really have the foundation plants, the green velvet boxwood, the drift roses, left just kind of the basics in, but you're really going to see the color come to life in the next couple of weeks. So now why don't we head around back to the butterfly garden? We've already been working back there. Again, more maintenance we have to do today. And then I want to show you one update on the project that we've been working on. So here we are in the butterfly garden, and it's already October. And I just love this garden so much because it just changes and evolves as the summer goes on. The bronze spindle is actually still feeding caterpillars. You can see those up close when you come back here. I've already had to cut back the milkweed because it was pretty much devoured by all of the caterpillars that were on it. And just look at some of the height. I mean, look at this angel trumpet, how much it has grown. One season, we actually cut this all the way back pretty much and overwintered in the greenhouse. And just look how much it has grown with the beautiful blooms on it. It's one of those plants that I always hate to dig up and take in, but if you don't, the freeze will certainly kill it. So a great plant that I just have to have every year somewhere in the garden. But everything has just done so well. The pollinators still are just flying all around everywhere. Even the kudos mandarin agastache, which I just love that minty fragrance. It's actually started to flush back out. We cut it all back, and it has really started to produce its bloom once again. So again, great plants going on. We're going to be doing more maintenance. I'm adding some things like echinacea. Also adding some pansies to this garden because, again, I don't love having just huge bare spaces of dirt where maybe something has died out or I've had to take it out because of overgrowth. So we're going to be adding some pansies. And then as you see over here, I love adding pumpkins to this garden as well. I love having pumpkins spread all around the garden. So I love all the unique colors and shapes. And I believe having these pumpkins in the garden adds such a nice punch of color, either on a large boulder of stone or around some greenery. And I think once we get this all mulched in later on today, it's really going to stand out. So again, remember to add unique pumpkins and gourds to maybe some unique places, and you'll really see how much they stand out. So before we wrap things up, I want to take you over to the potting shed, give you an update, show you what we've been doing this week. We've had some unusual maintenance that we've actually had to do on the potting shed before we actually start the reconstruction. So come along with me and I'll show you that update. So y'all just look at the potting shed. Look where it stands today. We have all of the walls off now and it's all completely open. Of course, once you get down to the studs, you realize some of the problems that might be lying underneath. And one of the things that we discovered was that this building was really uneven. So we actually called a company to come in and give us an idea on the cost of leveling this building. And when they gave us the estimate, we almost fell out. They wanted $30,000 to just level the floor. $30,000. We could not believe it. So we actually talked to a couple of friends, and we had a friend that does a lot of welding, and he came up with this great idea. Actually built these leveling trusses that we had installed just yesterday underneath. Leveled it up probably within an hour, and off he went. And we could not believe that someone would give an estimate for $30,000 when something could be done in such a short amount of time and make such a difference. And so the main thing at this point, I'm just excited. I've looked at this horrible shed for almost 8 years, but we knew that we wanted to do something unique. We just didn't know what. We actually used it as our original chicken coop, and actually the dogs were in here at one time. But now the ultimate goal is to turn it into the potting shed, and we are certainly on our way. Just wanted to show you what it looks like. I'm so excited. We're letting it air out. Then over the next couple of weeks, I'll try to give you some insights into some of the details that we're actually going to do here inside the potting shed. We'll have the construction guys that are going to come in. We're actually going to set the door. It's an old antique door that we're going to have to cut down. That's going to be a fun project. Then we're going to use that antique overhang that we actually showed you in a previous video. So that's going to be a fun project as well. But, you know, I think it's certainly been worth the wait. I am so excited, and hopefully by next spring, it'll certainly be a space that I'll be utilizing for doing some of my pottings. So as you can tell, we have a lot of details still to go on this project. And I think it's going to be one really fun for you to follow along as I unveil some of my thoughts, some of my designs, and we'll see how well I did in the very end. And remember, if you liked this video, be sure to subscribe, like, and follow me, the Preppy Gardener, and I'll see you in the next video.